You're listening to We're Talking Sports with Ben Burns and Richie Donnell. Remember to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Now, without further ado, Ben Burns and Richie Donnell. All right, everybody, welcome to We're Talking Sports. New week.
Yeah.
And big news, obviously. We now know the matchup to the glorified sport event of the century.
Yeah, Super Bowl 50.
Super Bowl 50.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see much of the games. I did watch the Denver game. I watched that whole game, and then I had to leave where I was at, and then I missed a chunk, and then caught the end, and saw absolutely none of the Carolina game.
Okay. You didn't miss much.
You didn't
miss
we
much.
Kept up on the score. You'd be very disappointed in me. I actually decided, myself, Chuck, and two other friends of ours, we watched the Royal Rumble instead of the Carolina game. And the Royal Rumble was a 9.5 out of 10 pay-per-view.
Okay.
It was fantastic.
We're talking sports, though. So
It is a sport.
Okay, all right.
Sports entertainment.
It's not. We're talking acting.
No,
it's not WTA. It's WTS. Okay, that's for another time.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about the first game, Broncos Patriots.
Yep.
Because not a lot of people were picking the Broncos on this one.
Absolutely.
Most people, including myself, picked New England to win this, just because New England.
Yeah, well, Peyton Manning himself, in an interview, they had asked him about the drive that kind of sealed it for them, that got them the go-ahead, or not necessarily the go-ahead, but the field goal.
Yes.
They had asked him about that, and his response was, all I wanted to do was get first downs because I wanted Tom Brady to not get the ball, because I knew if he got the ball, bad things were going to happen.
Absolutely. Tom Brady is one of the most clutch quarterbacks in playoff history.
Absolutely.
He's right up there with Joe Montana.
Yep, I would agree. My biggest takeaway, I had two takeaways from this game. I think a lot of people are overlooking Denver because of Peyton Manning. Due to he's shown his age a little bit more this year.
Yep.
Than in years past.
Absolutely.
And the hot topic today, talking to some people around campus, is that a lot of people assume that Carolina is just going to run right through Denver. And to me, Denver has the tools to stick with Carolina because they have the athletes on defense that can stick with Cam Newton if he decides to roll out. Cam Newton does only complete 58% of his passes. So a lot of his stuff is going to be deep. But, with Roby, Talib, Harris, they have a great secondary. I think Denver is going to be the underdog, but I think that it's truly the underdog story that I don't think it's as far-fetched that they could win the Super Bowl.
There's nothing I'd like right now more than see Peyton Manning walk away from the game.
Yeah, that's if he walks away. I mean, who knows?
And I think he will. I think he will either way, because I think he's done in Denver after this. I think this is going to be Brock Osweiler's team.
Yep.
But going back to what you were talking about with the defense, if the Broncos defense has anything, it's athletes.
Absolutely.
And you saw it with Von Miller. He had 2.5 sacks on Tom Brady yesterday. And, obviously Cam Newton, he's a bigger quarterback. Mm-hmm. He's a quicker guy. They're going to need that kind of pressure to stop him.
I had read this morning that actually the Broncos put more hits on Brady yesterday than any quarterback had taken during a single game in the entire season.
I believe it. I mean,
they were in his face
every
all day,
play. It was
all day.
It was either a hit, hurry, or sack.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely incredible to me.
The second takeaway that I had from this game was I saw one of the most unbelievable catches I've ever seen. I've seen some very great catches. I'm not talking on the level of Tyree, but that catch that Rob Gronkowski made, where he ran up the seam and he somehow stayed in bounds on the back line of the end zone and came under and then over the defender to catch that touchdown, was one of the most phenomenal things by somebody of that size.
For a tight end, that's pretty incredible. Absolutely.
That was an incredible, and that's my second takeaway. Rob Gronkowski is a bad man.
All right, Stephen A.
I'm sorry.
I agree.
Phenomenal
He's
player.
miles and away the best tight end in the league.
I agree.
And I think he'll be the best for a very long time.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see, for our fans that don't know, we've kind of revamped the show a little bit in style and how we want to do things. Rob Gronkowski might end up on our greatest tight ends of all time list that we're going to be doing as we go throughout shows here.
Yes, that's going to be very fun.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's
going to be it'll be good for not only the fans but for us too.
Yep. No, absolutely. I do have a question for you.
Yes.
So, we always talk about teams and the future of teams and young players and whatnot. One thing that I was looking through today, not to get away from the Super Bowl, we'll go back to the Super Bowl in a second.
Absolutely.
But the Raiders have 5 guys going to the Pro Bowl. Now, people say what you want about the Pro Bowl. Whether it's an actual football game or not. The Pro Bowl is a joke. But I mean, it's still something that people look at when you talk about Hall of Fame credentials or an all-time, just like they do for All-Star games for the MLB and NBA. But Derek Carr, Amari Cooper, Khalil Mack, and Latavius Murray are 4 of the 5, Charles Woodson being the 5th. Those 4 guys are relatively young. Is that kind of like the sign to say the Raiders are going to be the real deal?
Well, here's the thing. Okay, Khalil Mack's a Pro Bowler. Charles Woodson's a Pro Bowler. Was Cooper and Murray alternates?
I'm not. Murray was just named this morning. Yep. Amari Cooper, I'm not sure, but he did go over 1,000 yards for the season. That I do know.
Yeah, he had a good season. Derek Carr is obviously replacing Rodgers. I don't count those guys. I don't count alternates. Nobody plays in the Pro Bowl these days, and especially it now being a week before the Super Bowl, we're going to get no Broncos in and no Panthers.
Yep, I saw this morning. That's 14 guys.
And now it looks like everybody's making the Pro Bowl these days. Like, perfect example, last year, C.J. Anderson made the Pro Bowl. Yes. Was he a Pro Bowl player? Absolutely not.
Well, in case,
somehow he's going to be counted as he made the Pro Bowl in 2014.
I agree with you in that aspect because he had arguably the best second half of any running back in the league last year.
Okay.
Now, I'm not saying that he deserves a Pro Bowl shot, but in my opinion, these 5 gentlemen right here that I just named all had a season that warranted consideration. Now, if you're a guy who had a great season and you're a replacement, that's a completely different story because there's so much fan voting that goes into this that kind of takes away from it.
I don't think there's as much fan voting as you may think because I'm not sure how they balance it out between players and coaches, but here's what it comes down to for me. Was Latavius Murray a top 6 running back this year? No.
I think so.
Was Derek Carr a top 6 quarterback this year?
I think Latavius Murray.
That's a tough one. Actually, did he rush for? I think he rushed for 1,000.
He was one. I think he was top 5 in yards.
There wasn't many
No.
Great rushers this year.
Not at all.
I mean, I don't want to go down the list, but Derek Carr for sure is not a top 6 quarterback this year. I mean, I'll name 6 right now that were better. Brady, Rodgers, Cam Newton, Carson Palmer, Andy Dalton, and, who's another guy?
Well, right. I get what you're saying.
Al Smith was better than him.
I completely get what you're saying, but you also have to look at it as the Super Bowl quarterbacks aren't going to play.
Yeah, no, I know that.
Brady's probably not going to play.
I just don't think they should. I think when it says Pro Bowl, like if you go to his wiki page or whatever, when it says Pro Bowl selection, there should be an asterisk every time he's an alternate.
Okay.
That's just what I'm asking for.
I can see that.
And I mean, Julius Peppers got in today.
Yes, he did.
Same thing should be with him.
Yeah,
It's just not it because now we're like because it wasn't like this before where the Pro Bowl was before the Super Bowl or whatever. Right. Everybody played in the Pro Bowl. When you got in, that was an honor. You go to Honolulu and have a good time.
That's not necessarily true because Brett Favre hardly ever went because he was always hurt.
No, I'm talking about before then. Like in the 70s and the 80s.
70s and 80s. Okay.
Jack Youngblood played in the Pro Bowl with a broken leg.
Yeah, I mean, no, I'm not disagreeing with you.
When your pinky fingernail is broken off, you have to sit out. Well, it's ridiculous.
No, it's not that you have to sit out. It's
just it's not that you have to. I mean,
the choice of the players.
But I'm just saying, like, it's pitiful to me. The Pro Bowl is a joke now.
I agree to the extent that I think the Pro Bowl selections should still, regardless, because I think the NBA All-Star Game is a joke. I think it's the worst of the three. I think the game is absolutely terrible because it's just
the game itself is a joke.
Right.
I just think the selection for the NFL for the Pro Bowl is a joke.
Well, I think that if you get selected to the Pro Bowl, you should get that honor. But if you're a replacement, then maybe you shouldn't. You know what I mean? The original team that gets selected to the Pro Bowl should get the Pro Bowl nod. But like you said, Julius Peppers this morning got announced to the Pro Bowl team. Yeah. Maybe he shouldn't get a knock on the belt.
Exactly.
As whatever number this would be for him, this number shouldn't be there because he technically was not selected to the Pro Bowl until somebody said, I'm not coming.
John Kuhn, maybe my favorite player, was selected to the Pro Bowl as a fullback.
Which
didn't even play 25% of his snaps.
And nobody plays with a fullback anymore with all the spread offenses.
I mean, really, it's Carolina with Tolbert, the Raiders with
Reese. Yep.
And Sherman with the Chiefs. That's about it.
Right.
But you know what the Pro Bowl needs to get? They need to have those individual competitions more.
They do. They need to go back to
the bench press with Larry Allen. Was awesome.
And I think
all the skills competitions.
Right.
I'd watch those rather than the Pro Bowl.
I was roughly 9 or 10 years old, I think, when the first quarterback the game came out.
Yeah.
The I'm drawing a blank on it.
It was like the QB challenge.
Yes. So I think that would be a bonus for the NFL if they do it with high school kids going to college, where you bring in those moving boards and you do the target challenge, have the quarterbacks throw it at the board.
They do that a lot with, like...
And college to the NFL they do as well. Yeah. Why don't the NFL guys do it? Bring that back. They used to have, a couple years ago, the hot story was Brian Moorman almost won the 40-yard dash competition of fastest guy in the NFL as a punter. And then he happened to get laid out by Sean Taylor in that Pro Bowl game. Oh, yeah. But, I mean, things like that are what people enjoy.
Exactly.
And that's why they watch.
I love those. Yeah, and I don't know why they stopped doing them.
I don't either. But let's get back to the Super Bowl. I'm getting disappointed here.
All right, yeah.
So, obviously, as you said, we know it's Denver, Carolina. If I have a gun to your head right now, who are you taking?
Carolina. Okay. I'm rooting for Denver, but, I mean, that game against Arizona was... Like, I'm trying to picture Green Bay in that game, and... Ugh.
Against Carolina.
Yeah. I don't think they would have stood a chance.
Josh Norman just continues to grow on me.
Absolutely.
I watched his post-game press conference last night on SportsCenter.
Yeah.
And he is a very, very high-energy guy. And there's a lot of times where I necessarily don't fall in love with those guys, but it depends on how it is. You can be high-energy and not be arrogant. I don't like high-energy, arrogant players. I'm not a fan of that. But Josh Norman, to me, the first thing that he said was, this is our time, and Arizona had the best receiving core, or said to have the best receiving core in football coming into this game, and he said, I appreciate you guys for coming, but we, the Carolina Panthers, it's our time. When players acknowledge that it's not about them, and at his young age, they had a team picture after the game, a team picture, not Josh Norman with a reporter, or Josh Norman and Cam Newton and Luke Kuechly as the three faces of the organization. all the guys on that team got together and took a picture. To me, that just, brings out, I guess, maybe the family atmosphere that these guys are going to be here for a long, long time.
And you're talking about how mature Josh Norman is. He's not even the leader of the defense.
Right.
You got Luke Kuechly, Thomas Davis,
Yep.
who's hopefully going to be playing for the
yes,
Super Bowl.
absolutely.
Charles Johnson.
Yep.
You got a ton of guys.
Jared Allen's on that defense.
That's true. Man, that's a very mature group.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you think that, and this is where I'm going to cheer with Carolina, but I'm cheering for Carolina for a different reason. You said you picked Carolina, you want to root for
Yes.
Denver. I personally, here's my take on the Peyton Manning situation. If Denver wins, he rides off into the sunset. If they lose, he's coming back. Not to Denver, but he's playing for somebody next season.
Okay.
Because he, to me, has the same DNA that Brett Favre has, that he's going to play until he can't walk on that field anymore. And I think that if Denver loses, that fire is just going to continue to burn inside of him, where he's going to be like, I need to come back because I'm too damn competitive, and I need to compete for another championship. I mean, he's, 1-3 in Super Bowls? The only Super Bowl they won was Chicago.
Against Chicago.
And they lost to the Saints, and he's lost to the Seahawks. I think he wants a second ring to solidify his legacy as a multiple Super Bowl champion.
Okay.
I really do.
I disagree. I think this will be his last game. But you never know.
Yeah, right. But I'm rooting for Carolina. As a guy who likes the style of run the ball and play defense, I mean, I think Carolina's as run the ball and play defense as it gets in the NFL, besides the Seattle Seahawks. And I love Luke Kuechly. I think he's a fantastic player. As a former linebacker in high school, I just love watching him
fantastic.
play. And I'd like to see Carolina get one. They didn't get the one against the Patriots all those years back. I think this is their time.
Also, gotta love Ron Rivera.
Yes, yes.
Everybody's
absolutely.
been talking about Bruce Arians this playoffs, and granted, Bruce Arians is awesome.
Right.
But Ron Rivera has not gotten enough respect.
Absolutely.
For what he's been doing in Carolina.
Yep. And he's got the experience. I mean, he won a Super Bowl with the Bears as a player.
Yep.
And he was the defense coordinator when they went to the Super Bowl against the Colts. And then the funny thing that I saw this morning is the two teams that are facing each other, Denver and Carolina, have one thing in common. John Fox. Who's now, I mean, I hate to tie it in that way to my favorite team, but it was funny.
That's a bummer for him.
I saw that this morning but if you think about it, when John Fox first left Carolina, I think Cam Newton was either just drafted. He was there for maybe
just drafted
the first year, or he was let go and Cam Newton was a rookie, something like that. And then obviously John Fox is a big part of why Denver looks the way that they do. But it's kind of funny that now the two teams that John Fox kind of intricated, are now playing in the Super Bowl.
Hey, he's in Chicago now.
I'm hoping.
Hey, so that's a good sign for the Bears. Once John Fox gets out
it
there.
Is. So we all know where the Bears stand. We're rebuilding. I want to know about this Journal Sentinel thing that you kept bringing up.
Right. So apparently, according to Bob McGinn and quote unquote several sources.
Yeah, but I do want to say that when you did tell me this, we looked it up, and the only thing that we found, whether it was Bleacher Report or any other website,
all come from McGinn.
It's just a repeated article.
Yes.
Yeah.
So apparently, this source says that Mike McCarthy, who's been the head coach for the Packers for 10 years, is now quote unquote fed up with Ted Thompson's draft and develop style. And if people that don't know really what that means is building your team through the draft and staying away from mostly the free agent market.
Right. And I'm going to put it this way. The major free agents that I've seen Green Bay pick up, Charles Woodson, Hall of Famer, won a Super Bowl here. And Julius Peppers, who has been nothing but extraordinary for Green Bay over the last couple years that he's been there.
Right.
I think that story is garbage, to put it politely.
I agree with you 100%. And another couple guys we signed this offseason that nobody's remembers for some reason is Randall Cobb, Brian Bulaga, BJ Raji.
Right. No.
But a lot of other teams aren't able to re-sign their guys because they go off and get Ndamukong Suh for $25 million a year.
Yep. No. And I think, and to me, as a coach, I look at it from the standpoint of, we saw what happened with Harbaugh and Balky. If a GM and a head coach aren't going to get along, they're not going to have a 10-year relationship. Because if I believe correctly, Ted Thompson was the guy who hired Mike McCarthy. If they didn't get along, why would Mike McCarthy still be here after all this time?
This is why the story is not true.
Yeah,
it's not true. They've made the playoffs 7 years in a row now.
As much as I hate the Packers and I want this to be true, because Mike McCarthy is a fantastic football coach, I have a hard time just believing anything about that.
We have Edgar Bennett just in case.
Yeah.
We'll promote him.
Is he the associate head coach? Or
He's the offensive coordinator.
Right, but I think Clements is the associate head coach.
But see, if for some reason this was actually true, I would want probably Edgar as my coach.
No, I agree with you. I'm not saying Clements is the guy. If it was mid-season, Clement would be promoted due to his contract obligation.
Well, no.
The associate head coach, the term means that you are the replacement of the head coach.
Winston Moss is the assistant head coach. He coaches the linebackers, but his title is assistant head coach.
Okay, so
I don't know the difference between assistant and associate, but...
Okay, because I know the associate head coach is usually the guy who gets the head coaching job if during the season the head coach gets fired.
Well, I mean, Dan Campbell was the Dolphins' assistant head coach.
Okay, he was the assistant head coach.
Yes.
Oh, then maybe each team is different.
I don't know. I don't even think they know how it works, but I don't know. It's not true. The story is not true.
Well,
and let's move on.
Yeah,
because I guarantee you, in Mike McCarthy's next press conference, he will address it right away and say, "Yeah, that's complete garbage."
and I just want to say, I want to apologize to all Milwaukee natives who do get the Journal Sentinel, but any information about the Green Bay Packers is now not going to be coming to your house because I don't see Mike McCarthy answering questions to this guy after making an accusation like that, much like Rodgers doesn't to the guy from the Green Bay.
They're going to have to talk to Tom Silverstein now.
Yeah, something. But since we're talking about coaching controversy, let's talk about David Blatt. I mean, this situation is just such a circus and so embarrassing and just downright dirty that I can't believe that this actually happened. I'm still trying to wrap my head around the fact that Tyrone Lue, the guy that I watched as a point guard for 37 different teams, even though there's 30 in the league, and lay on the ground as Allen Iverson stepped over the top of him. I mean, that's his biggest moment in his career. Allen Iverson hits a three and steps over the top of him. That's the biggest moment of his career.
I think at one point, NBA 2K5, I believe he had the lowest rating in the entire game.
For all I know, he could end up being a great coach. Now, I do want to say, that game against the Bulls that he coached did not look very well. They just got demolished. But, so, my thing is I didn't know that Tyrone Lue had a 3-year contract, or however they did that. But he's now at least contractually obligated as 3 years.
He's their guy.
He's their guy. If I was Cleveland, to me, the guy is Mark Jackson, the former Golden State head coach. He's a guy who's not going to put up with egos because I think Blatt cracked under the pressure, and you have a guy like LeBron who's going to try to call his own shots. Mark Jackson won't put up with that. He's also a former player, and he's won before, and I think that he just is a great guy to fill that spot.
Yeah, he's an easy name to bring up with any team.
Right.
You know who I think the Cavaliers guy should have been? David Blatt.
Okay.
The guy that brought them to the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
I don't get it. It just... It makes me so upset.
Let me bring this
angry
up.
That they fired the guy who's currently first in the conference.
Yes, and they set an NBA record that they had the highest winning percentage of a team to ever fire their coach after
awful.
a
That is
championship
awful.
season. But I do want to say this. A couple of things that I have heard from people, not necessarily in the business, but that follow these things very, very closely, was that David Blatt was feeling the pressure and that he would actually have moments where he'd be standing on the sideline and he wouldn't call a play. Like imagine Mike McCarthy just standing there, Rodgers is waiting for a call and nobody gives him a call. You know what I mean? Like Blatt would freeze, or they'd be in a huddle and he'd be drawing something up and he would just stop and just zone out, and then he'd come back in and the timeout would be over. Or he would say, hey, J.R. Smith, I need you to do A, B, C, and D while you're on the court, and J.R. Smith isn't even in the game. I think the situation, I think that the problem with the Cavaliers has more so to do with off the court, in the locker room, the relationship between the owner, the GM, the coach, and LeBron. That's where the issue is.
It's the LeBron effect. I think ever since he came back, it's like, okay, the clock is ticking now to win an NBA championship.
Right.
You know, it was the same thing with the Miami Heat. With LeBron, you expect to win the championship every single year.
Yep.
That's not going to happen,
Right.
but that is the expectation.
Well, and a friend of mine actually, when this first happened, we had a very intense texting conversation. Let me ask you this: was LeBron James a mistake?
No.
Okay.
No.
Now, I want to see where you were with that, because he had brought up the idea of possibly long term bringing LeBron back being a mistake for the organization. But I think when you sign LeBron, whether you're Boston, whether you're the Knicks, the Lakers, the Bucks, whoever you are, signing LeBron James is the right decision.
Right.
Where I think Cleveland made the mistake is trading for Kevin Love. That guy plays no defense. Neither does Kyrie. And Dellavedova is supposed to be this great defender, and yet he's been on ESPN because he's getting his ankles broke.
Right.
And I just...
And I agree with you there. I don't think you need, a big three to win the championship.
I agree.
I don't think you... And I think their problem was going out to get a guy like Kevin Love and pay him just a huge contract. Golden State basically did it organically,
Right.
through the draft with
Yeah.
Curry, Clay, and Draymond.
Yeah. Well, and I mean...
Same thing with OKC.
Right, but and also to Golden State's effect, they've trusted in the process, and they were, a couple years
Absolutely.
ago, what made me actually happy as a Bucks fan, they were able to unload a guy like a Monte Ellis, who they thought wasn't a long-term guy, and get a center like Andrew Bogut, who is very good at protecting the rim and at what he does. That just happened to be a very nice complementing piece to those shooters around him.
And, I think when LeBron when LeBron came to Cleveland, they had a win-now approach. And they thought getting Kevin Love would seal the NBA Finals.
I want you to tell me if I'm a little far-fetched by thinking this. But when they traded for Kevin Love, now I thought Irving, Wiggins, LeBron, Thompson, and Mozgov would have been fantastic because they all do different things very well. Mozgov is a very good low post offensive player. Thompson's your offensive rebounder. He's better defensively than he is offensively. LeBron is probably going to be your ball handler, Mr. Do Everything. Wiggins is very good without the ball, and Kyrie is going to be a prolific scorer with the ball in his hands. Now, when I look at the team that Cavaliers have now, to me, the owner is essentially recreating a poor version of the Miami Heat. Kyrie is your poor man's Dwayne Wade, and Kevin Love is your less efficient Chris Bosh in that scenario.
Yeah. You have a couple points. I think the big thing with with Wiggins is I think you have way too much potential basically on the bench. They knew they could get a lot for Wiggins because a lot of people saw Wiggins as kind of, the next LeBron.
Right.
So they decided they were going to basically cash in, seeing that they did have LeBron, and get a guy like Love, another superstar. Now, I think it would have been smarter for them to maybe go out, get a couple first-round picks, and maybe some solid role players.
Yeah,
for him.
I agree. Because look at Boston. That's essentially what Boston did when they unloaded Ray Allen and Kevin Garnett and Pierce and Rondo. They now have like 4 first-round picks this year.
They could have gotten something like, I don't know, traded to the Clippers for maybe DeAndre Crawford and a first-round pick.
Yeah,
I think that would have been much better than getting what they got for Kevin.
Right. No, I agree. So we'll talk of baseball. So baseball's about 2 months away from really getting started, and they're talking about the NL getting a designated hitter.
Okay.
What are your thoughts?
I have no thoughts. And I don't know how strict people are with the American League and the National League. See, I'm more of an NFL and NBA guy, where it's more about the league than the conferences.
Right.
I think with Major League Baseball, it's more, a lot of people think more about
the American
conferences.
League and the National League,
right? Than the entire league.
Right. And it has to do with the DH, obviously.
But see, I'm not a huge baseball fan.
Okay.
But I think statistically, it would be better if they did have a DH. And I think it'd be better for the game because you're having some solid hitters out there.
Yeah, and now you're starting to see more guys like a David Ortiz, who's probably going to go into the Hall of Fame as a designated hitter.
Yes.
And not somebody who has actually really put a whole lot of time in at playing a position.
No.
But personally, to me, I'm all for no DH. Maybe it's just because I grew up a Brewers fan, and my whole life I've been watching pitchers hit. That I just feel like it's a part of the game. But at the same time, Babe Ruth was a pitcher. And Babe Ruth is, second all-time?
Yeah.
Third all-time, I'm sorry, in career home runs. So to me, that says that there is no reason that a pitcher should not be able to hit the baseball.
You're talking about Babe Ruth, who's a one-in-a-kind.
Oh, right. No, I agree.
One of a kind.
But I feel like with the designated hitter spot, now, in the American League, you hear so many pitchers who get traded from the American League to the National League who are, the first thing they say is, I'm excited that I get to hit. And in college, they have to hit. And there's some pitchers who are actually very good hitters in college and then end up moving to a different position because they want that bat in the lineup every day. I just feel like if pitchers actually put the time in to learn how to have a successful at-bat or use the bat to their advantage, that this issue of pitchers hitting a .1 or a .0 the number would get smaller.
Right. But that's not what they're paid to do.
No,
So.
I guess. So.
John Lester wasn't paid all that money to bat ninth.
Or in the St. Louis Cardinals case, eighth, like they do a lot of times with their pitchers.
Very true.
So to bring up a situation that actually ended, Florida State is $950,000 poorer as of today. The young lady who decided she was going to sue Jameis Winston got her payday. Now, we can look at this situation, I think, one of two ways. It's an athlete getting away with a crime, or in the way that I think the Ben Roethlisberger situation went. This was a girl who got what she wanted and then didn't get what she wanted when Jameis Winston decided not to call her back the next weekend. I'm not so sure about that. We see it one too many times where athletes are getting accused of these things, like the lady with Kobe. She accused Kobe of rape, and really all it ended up being was consensual, but Kobe just never called her back.
Whether or not that was the case, I don't think we can say, but Florida State committed a crime.
Right. And trying to cover it up. Right.
Yeah, and they should be, I think they should be suspended, obviously, from any playoff or bowl games for quite some time, in my opinion. Yeah, yeah. They paid this girl off, so their Heisman Trophy winning quarterback.
Well, but he's been gone. He's gone now, going on almost 2 years. But now she just finally got paid off. So it would have been
know.
smarter to do it when he was there and this was first brought up and he was first.
But we don't know if she was paid before, or I don't know. I think we haven't heard the last of this.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's hard to say that the team deserves a penalty of some sort. I get covering it up is one thing that, I get that.
Well,
so maybe
Florida
I
State...
could see, 1 year bowl ban. But to say for a long time, now
I mean, for a long time, I'm
level,
thinking 3 or 4 years.
But now you're putting this on the level of Jerry Sandusky. Because Penn State...
I still think they should still be suspended for that.
Because Jerry Sandusky, they got 3 or 4 years for it, and I think you by saying that they should be suspended 3 or 4 years from the postseason puts this scenario that Florida State is going through on the same level as Jerry Sandusky.
I don't know. I didn't compare it to the Jerry Sandusky
No, I'm
case.
just saying in
if
the
I said
comparison
comparing it to the Sandusky case and the suspension, obviously it should be less.
Yeah.
But I wasn't comparing it.
No, I wasn't saying. I'm just saying when you said multiple years, that's what Penn State ultimately.
Yeah.
got.
Okay.
So Cam Newton, if Carolina wins the Super Bowl, will be the third quarterback to win a national championship and a Super Bowl in their career. Can you think of who the other two would be?
Oh, were they recent?
No.
No. Oh boy. Did Staubach win with Navy? No.
Mm-mm. One of them, I guarantee you would consider one of the 10 greatest quarterbacks of all time.
Okay.
Probably 5 greatest quarterbacks of all time. Played at Notre Dame.
Montana.
Yep.
And
the other one played at Alabama.
Was it Bart?
Nope. Played in a major city. Had a nickname.
He played at Alabama.
Yep.
Had a nickname.
Played in a big city. I mean, that's probably as big as it gets.
Oh, Joe Namath.
Yep. So to put Cam Newton in with those guys, I mean, I think that's, if Cam Newton can accomplish this, obviously, would be a great accomplishment.
Another fact I saw on Adam Schefter's Twitter account. This is the first game ever, or the first Super Bowl ever, that the two quarterbacks were number 1 overall picks.
Yep. Yes, I did see that. And was it last week's? There was one where it was like, no, I completely just blanked on it. My apologies.
That's okay.
My apologies. But I think it was something with the. It was like one of the first weeks of the playoffs, where like all the quarterbacks had something specific.
Okay.
That it was the first time in NFL history. So we got about 20 minutes. Should we get into these quarterbacks?
Let's do the top 10 list. Do you want to go first? Or...
I think we can go one at a time.
Okay. No, what I was thinking. Do you want to do it one at a time, and then we'll see how that is?
Yeah.
And
So
then...
I think if we say, hey, okay, my number 1 is whoever, and you say,
let's start at 10.
Oh, we can do that.
It's like a
countdown.
Yeah.
No. We can do that, and then we can, because I also have my honor. You had a list of a number of guys, and in that case, I created my honorable mention guys who I thought of, who I left off, but had considered to put in my top 10.
Yeah.
That we can start with those guys, and then go from 10 on down.
I don't think we should, because it'll leave everybody in more suspense.
Okay.
You know, I can't find my. I know it on the top of my head, but whatever.
Okay. You know it backwards, forwards, back?
Hang on, I'm gonna write it down. Ooh, you can hear the zipper.
Yeah. No, and the funny thing is so when I was looking at this, I actually wrote down the accomplishments and the accolades of these guys, as that's what's been taking me so long.
Okay.
So if you say, well, why is this guy deserve? I have a little bit of reasoning as to why, and I just want the listeners to know. In my list, some of the things that I took into heavy consideration were obviously the statistics. What that person's been able to do over their career. Super Bowl championships wasn't I didn't think it was as big of a factor in my decision making as I thought it would be. I've always been big on if you can play for a winner and you're winning championships, along with being a great player, that carries a lot of weight. But the one thing that I found that actually did a lot of things was the All Pros. All Pro actually to me has been something that I think I'm more appreciative now, that carries a lot of weight and actually helped with my decision making and who I should put in my 10.
All right. Do you want to start?
All right.
Who's your number 10?
Ben Roethlisberger.
All right.
Is my number 10. How do you want to do this? You want to combat that, or
why don't you say a little bit why you have him in your top 10?
So the reason I have Ben in my top 10 is because obviously Ben is not done playing yet. Okay. He's going to continue to play. He's what, 33, 34, 32, 33-ish?
He's about 33.
So we're probably talking he's probably got 3 good years left.
4 more
good years, plus maybe 5 or 6 if he just continues to try to hold it out. But he's already at 43,000 yards. He's at 270 touchdowns, which are both top 15 all time, which means by the time his career is over, his passing yards and his passing touchdowns will be in the top 10. 2-time Super Bowl champ. He was the Rookie of the Year, led the league in passing once before. And also the fact he's the youngest starting quarterback in the history of the NFL to win a Super Bowl. And he's been to 3 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
Which and the one thing I was actually having a conversation with this morning was about his durability, and just that man plays through just about everything. If he can walk, he's going to play. And I think that also speaks volumes to the fact that you can count on him week in and week out to do what Ben Roethlisberger does.
All right. I'll talk about that once we get done.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then just so then there's no contesting.
Yeah,
right
no,
now.
I'm fine.
I'll say my piece.
Yep.
You'll say yours about. Okay. My number 10 is also playing right now, Aaron Rodgers.
Okay.
I don't know after this season, but he had the best passer rating in his career, and he's up there with passing completion percentage.
Yeah.
I think he's number 1, but I'm not including this season because it was a little rough. I don't know what was going on, but I mean, his passes are just absolutely incredible. And I think he showed his toughness last season with his calf injury and absolutely took it to the Cowboys. Had a great game. Of course, he already has won a Super Bowl, 2 MVPs, Super Bowl MVP as well. And obviously, I think this guy has 7 more years to go. Hopefully, all of them will be good. But fantastic quarterback. I think if he wins another Super Bowl, he'll go much higher on this list. And I mean, I think if he gets 2 more Super Bowls, we could be talking about Aaron Rodgers being the best quarterback to ever play the game.
Okay. All right. You want to...
you do 9.
Oh, okay. I was going to say if you wanted to go right into 9, and then we can just do it that way.
You just do 9.
Okay. Number 9. I had a little hard time with my number 9 just because I don't think that his NFL career. If he would have played his entire career in the NFL, the numbers would be a little bit different. He might be a little bit higher on this list. But I went with Warren Moon on my list. 7th all time in passing yards, 9th all time in passing touchdowns. Did not win a Super Bowl, but had won 5 Canadian Grey Cups before he even came to the NFL. So to me, just his ability to play in 2 different leagues, to be in the Hall of Fame for 2 different leagues, and the success that he found, and as we all know, the NFL field is smaller, the windows are tighter. There's a little bit of change to the NFL, but also 9-time Pro Bowl, Offensive Player of the Year, led the league in passing yards twice. He holds some Tennessee Titan records and Hall of Fame inductee in 2006.
Okay. Number 9 for me is Bart Starr.
Okay.
The leader of the first 2 Super Bowls, 5 championships, was the quarterback of the greatest head coach in the NFL all time. And I think what people don't give him enough credit for is that this was a smart dude. He maybe wasn't as athletic as a guy like Rodgers or Roethlisberger, but he was smart with the football, and he was pretty darn accurate. I think, with the Green Bay Packers, especially the 60s, everybody thinks about Lombardi or Nitschke, but Bart Starr was their leader. He was their leader on the field, and of course, look at a play like, obviously, his QB sneak in the Ice Bowl. Simple 1-yard play, but it's very iconic. He's an iconic guy. He got it done in the clutch. And I don't think there would have been many other quarterbacks who could have held his own with Vince Lombardi, a guy that intimidating. But he was able to, and won 5 championships with them.
Yeah. Number 8 for me is Fran Tarkenton.
Okay.
I think Fran obviously was to me was a little bit ahead of his time due to his athletic ability at the quarterback position, where I have seen highlights of him really being, I guess, maybe not the first guy, but just the mobility in the pocket and being able to get out and roll around and make plays on the run.
It's probably the first mobile quarterback.
Right, yeah, in the sense of what we consider to be quarterback today.
Correct.
Because, like you said, some guys were mobile enough to get around and move a little bit, like a Johnny Unitas. But I think Fran Tarkenton would be, I guess, what we consider the first mobile quarterback.
Yes, the guy that would actually run past the line of scrimmage.
Right, of today's day. Yep. 8th all-time in passing yards, 6th all-time in touchdowns, 9 Pro Bowls, a league MVP, All-Pro, Offensive Player of the Year. But the one thing that sticks out to me, despite, he didn't win any championships, played in 3 Super Bowls, but he holds the Minnesota Vikings record in wins. And that, to me, when and everybody says, well, it doesn't matter what you do in the regular season, it matters what you do in the postseason, but you still got to win to get to the postseason. And to have a team record of how many times your team has won under you being the most, much like Green Bay did with Favre, that gives your team that much more opportunity to play for a championship. And I think his leadership and then obviously the athletic ability, a trendsetter of his time, to becoming what we consider today the prototypical quarterback.
All right. My number 8 is a guy who is really partly responsible for bringing the Cleveland Browns into the NFL. And I'm talking about Otto Graham. Otto Graham played some of his career in the AAFC when that was originally a thing. And then obviously they went to they won so many championships there. The Browns, led by head coach Jim Brown, was brought to the Browns, and they started winning championships there too. Yep. So how many championships has he won in total? I think it's 10.
Yeah, and I believe, if I remember correctly, it was 10 in 10 years. Or something.
There's no chance that's ever going to happen again.
No, absolutely not.
No chance.
No.
So Otto Graham obviously played in a time where maybe quarterback isn't very much the same as it is now than it was back in the 50s. But he was, kind of like Bart Starr, you can't play for that long and win that many championships in that many years without being a great leader. And I think that's what a quarterback's all about. So that's why he's number 8 for me.
Number 7, I have Johnny Unitas on my list. 4-time NFL champion. Obviously, his time was before the Super Bowl, much like Otto Graham's was. But wins. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing. 40,000 passing yards, 290 touchdowns, 3 champs. 5 All-Pros, 4 MVPs. And the thing that sticks out to me, when I'm looking at these guys, the NFL releases a 50th anniversary team, of their beginnings. The 75th anniversary, I'm sure we'll get a 100th. But Johnny Unitas was on the 50th and the 75th, which to me speaks wonders about the appreciation to how good he really was.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's guys who don't necessarily make both of those lists, and as we continue to go further into the future, we hear the common phrase of bigger, faster, stronger, and we know that athletes are a little bit different now than they were back then. But to be on the 50th anniversary team and the 75th anniversary team, despite the fact that I wasn't alive, the 1960s all-decade team just speaks wonders to what Johnny Unitas was for professional football.
Mm-hmm. My number 7 is the best quarterback to never win a championship, Dan Marino. This guy just had such an incredible arm. If he had just won one championship, I think he's number 1. And
so championships was that much of a factor for you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when you can win on that level, that's a lot of respect right there. But Dan Marino still has a lot of respect for me.
Yeah.
Was originally the leader in passing yards until guys like Favre and Manning came around and both Brady and Breeze broke it.
Touchdowns, not yards. Dan Marino still third in yards. Right.
But still, for Dan Marino to get it done with really not that much. I know he had Mark Duper, receiver, and Jimmy Johnson was his head coach for a while, along with Shula.
Yes.
So actually, he did have quite a lot.
Yeah.
but I don't know. That was a tough one. Marino's a tough one for me. To me, he's top 5 talent, but no championships. I got to put him at 7.
Yeah, and I've noticed one of the biggest differences in our list so far is the championship thing. With the guys that I've had at the bottom of my list a little bit, didn't win championships, where yours were more guys who were known for their championships, more so than anything else.
United has won a lot of championships.
Right. But I mean, a Warren Moon to a Bart Starr.
Okay.
Scenario. Right. Number 6 for me, a lot of people say he could also be the most overrated quarterback of all time. I have John Elway at number 6. 6th in passing yards, 7th in touchdowns. Obviously, those numbers are going to continue to fall farther and further down. But won 2 Super Bowls, was a Super Bowl MVP. Obviously, we all know the helicopter play, which still sticks in the minds of Packer fans. But 9 Pro Bowls, 3 All-Pros, an MVP, a Decades team. But also played in 5 Super Bowls, which I think gives him a lot of credit. And a lot of people think that it would have been more had Terrell Davis not had the injuries. But I still think John Elway, despite what people may think of him, with losing a lot of big games as well, is still worthy of the number 6 on my list.
All right. My number 6, the gunslinger, Brett Favre.
Brett Favre, all right.
God. What's not to say about Brett Favre? I mean, yeah, he did lead. He's number 1 in interceptions. No surprise there. But he's also, he's now number 2 in everything behind Peyton.
Right, absolutely.
A guy that, obviously the big thing about Brett Favre is his toughness. To be so effective and play in so many games after so many years is just incredible. And I don't know if anybody had more of a love for the game than Brett Favre on my list, and would go out there for anything. And man, that guy had a bullet for an arm.
Yeah, no, I mean, and
bullet.
The worst part for me about watching most of Brett Favre's career is because I had to play against him twice a year. I mean, that was the one thing I hated about it. I loved watching the guy play. I mean, I would watch Packer games just to watch him play.
And he's so fun to watch.
Absolutely,
really.
Absolutely. He's like a kid in a candy store when it comes to being on a football field. A little bit of a swap here. A guy you kind of talked about at my 5 spot, Dan Marino. I thought, despite the fact that he never won the Super Bowl, I can't say that he's not one of the 5 best quarterbacks to ever lace up a pair of cleats and walk on a football field. For a lot of the things that you mentioned, but to reiterate, 3rd all-time in yards, 5th all-time in touchdowns. Yeah, no championships, but the Pro Bowl's there, MVP, All-Pro, Offensive Player of the Year, Comeback Player of the Year, led the league in passing 5 times, led the league in touchdowns 3 times. First quarterback ever to throw for 5,000 yards in a season. So I guess we can kind of say, along
Absolutely.
with Frank Tarkenton, Marino was a trendsetter, whereas now you have Eli Manning who's done it, Peyton Manning has done it, Matthew Stafford has done it. I'm not sure if Tom Brady has done it, but a lot of guys that are now starting to create.
I think he did it
the year that
with the undefeated
right.
year.
Yeah. And where a lot of guys are now starting to get up to that 5,000 yards. But also he was the first quarterback to ever throw 40 touchdowns in a season as well. And then obviously deserving of a Hall of Fame. Like we kind of just talked about, you said championships were a big thing for you. Championships are big, and they kind of do separate, to me, more at the top than so at the bottom of a top 10 list. But when I watch Dan Marino play, I there's nothing I can say that doesn't say top 5 all time.
All right. Guy that made my top 5 but didn't make yours, John Elway.
Okay.
He is my number 5. Man, I think, when I think of John Elway, if I can meld 2 quarterbacks, it would be Brett Favre plus Dan Marino.
Okay.
To me. John Elway had the grit, the toughness, played for a very long time. Last 2 years was his last 2 Super Bowl seasons. Granted, he did have Terrell Davis, but nonetheless, and then he's had he was such a good passer, and was able to make a career for guys like Shannon Sharp and Rod Smith, and a fantastic leader too. And I think you can say that about all these guys. They're all great leaders.
Absolutely. I think that's what when you're talking about
that's
top
the number
10
one
quarterbacks.
thing.
Yeah,
Is
you have to have leadership, and I honestly, even I think the only guy that might not have won a league championship that I brought up, Tarkenton, and I brought up was Warren Moon. I think all your guys so far besides Marino have won a championship. But Marino, 5-time Grey Cup champion in Canada. Tarkenton, as we said.
All right, hey, we can talk about that later. You already talked about your guys.
All right, I'm sorry. Number 4, a guy you didn't have in your top 5, Brett Favre. I have at number 4. Second all-time passing yards, second all-time touchdowns. Obviously, like you said, behind Peyton Manning. Has the 1 Super Bowl, 96. But really, he was the first guy to win 3 league MVPs, 3 first-team All-Pros, led the league in touchdowns 4 times, and he still holds the Green Bay records, and I don't see Aaron Rodgers breaking these in yards, touchdowns, and obviously interceptions. Rodgers won't break either. But I think that, those records will stand for Favre and then the 90s All-Decade team. And despite losing in a second one, did play in 2 Super Bowls.
Mm-hmm.
So
my top 4, this is very, very close to me. I think all these guys, one day I might say one of these are the best quarterbacks of all time. Mm-hmm. Another day it might be another guy. Mm-hmm. It just sucks because number 4, I have Johnny Unitas, and I love Johnny Unitas so much because I think some days I do think he is the best quarterback of all time. I've always thought that for a long time. Mm-hmm. Whenever anybody asks, who's the best quarterback of all time, Johnny Unitas. So putting him at number 4 is tough for me. But the thing that I think is great about Johnny Unitas is I think he could play in any era and be as good as he was when he played with Baltimore. And it has to do with, he had the athleticism, he had the arm, he had the smarts more than anything. This guy called his own plays. Granted, we do have smart quarterbacks like Rodgers and Peyton Manning today, but none of them call their own plays.
Right.
All right, this was all Johnny Unitas, and he won championships for that. So I gotta say Johnny Unitas number 4. It sucks because All right. Who's your
Number 3. This might be the first actual. I don't know your list, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is the first spot where we have a guy in the same exact spot.
Okay.
Peyton Manning. I'm going to say Peyton Manning is my number 3. I have not seen your list. I do want the listeners to know that I have not seen who Ben has. First all-time passing yards, first all-time in touchdowns. The one thing that has, though, stuck out to me, and this is where championships did come into a factor, because I do remember Peyton Manning getting drafted. I do remember watching his entire career. Whereas a Dan Marino, I don't remember being able to watch his whole career, or a Brett Favre, somebody like that when we were little. But the fact, we were just talking about this, to go to 3 Super Bowls, and you lose one on a pick six, and the other one you just get completely demolished. Like, it was nobody's business. And at the same time, I think they only beat that Chicago team led by arguably the worst quarterback in Super Bowl history, Rex Grossman. They did not handle their business. They won the game, I guess, which you can consider handling business. But that Chicago team just hung in there. And when you have a guy like Peyton Manning versus a guy like Rex Grossman, I would assume that you should at least win by 10 points. And they didn't do that. I think Peyton Manning is a phenomenal quarterback. Just the way that he plays the game, the throws I've seen him make, and just some of the great battles that I'll always remember between him and Brady. But that is the one thing that stuck out to me, that kept me from having Manning higher, was his failure to continue, to play big when needed.
Mm-hmm. Trying to think of a worse quarterback that played in the Super Bowl. I mean, I can think Trent Dilfer, but he won.
Yeah,
Trent Dilfer won.
Exactly.
Tris Chandler?
Maybe.
Falcons?
Yeah, the Falcons.
I don't think he was worse than Rex.
There's not many guys that were worse than Rex that have played in the Super Bowl.
You are right. My number 3 is Peyton Manning. Hands down, the smartest quarterback to ever play the game. Maybe the smartest player to ever play football. I mean, he's the exact person you look for when trying to draft a quarterback. Thank God the Colts didn't draft Ryan Leaf, or else the NFL would be so much different.
Absolutely.
I don't even want to know.
I mean, could you imagine Peyton Manning in San Diego?
Oof.
Instead of Ryan Leaf? I mean,
I can tell you for sure they wouldn't be going to LA.
I agree. And speaking of San Diego, did you see that the Raiders for 2017, San Diego?
See that? I'm going to say what Phillip Rivers said. That makes me nauseous.
Yeah,
it makes me nauseous. But Peyton Manning, incredible quarterback.
Yep.
He broke Dan Marino's touchdown record. Got 49. Then Tom Brady took it back.
And then
he took it back.
Yeah.
But I think, again, I had to put him over Johnny Unitas, mostly because of his resurgence with the Denver Broncos, coming back from that neck injury.
Yeah.
HGH or no HGH. I don't think he took HGH.
I don't think
so. But, winning comeback player of the year, and then the MVP.
Right.
And now brought him to 2 Super Bowls.
Yep.
Quite incredible for Peyton Manning.
Mm-hmm. My top 2, I think these guys are
You can just say your top 2.
Yeah, these guys are interchangeable. I mean, hey, I wake up on Sunday, I'm going to say one name. I wake up on Monday, I say another. I think regardless, I think I'm saying both names here for the two of us. I don't think you go wrong when you say Joe Montana and Tom Brady. I have it in order of Tom Brady, Joe Montana.
Joe Montana is your 1?
No, Tom Brady is my 1. Joe Montana is my 2. To me, the more I was not a fan of dynasties. I just didn't. I like parody. I'm an old school guy that way. But the more and more I watch Tom Brady play, the more and more I fall in love with him. Just the way that he plays the game, and he's 38, 39 years old, still doing what Tom Brady did when he was 22, 23 years old, and to just win the way that he does year in and year out, regardless of what you think about that division that they play in, as it maybe being an easy way to get the 1 seed, you still have to handle business in the playoffs. And, I wrote this up, the things that I wanted to talk about with him, and he's played in 6. And when I wrote this, I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to remember to go change that if they end up winning on Sunday. To play in 7 Super Bowls, he's been to 10 AFC championship games, which the next closest quarterback to play in career-wise in total championship games is Joe Montana at 8. So Tom Brady could possibly just continue to pull away, because I don't see Robert Kraft saying, oh, we got to get a guy to replace Tom Brady. If Tom Brady's 100 years old and he wants to play, Robert Kraft is going to say, you let this man play.
I've got the same. I've got Montana at 2 and Brady at 1. Tom Brady has officially changed the definition of a franchise quarterback. We look at Peyton Manning right now. Peyton's darn near close to the end of the road. If not, I think this is going to be his last game. Tom Brady has seasons left.
Yes, I agree.
And he's still getting it. He is still easily a top 5 quarterback in the league, and that's absolutely incredible. And for a guy that, hasn't had many great receivers either, or running backs, his is probably the 2 best players, besides offensive linemen that he's played with is Randy Moss and Rob Gronkowski.
Let me put it.
Which are 2 fantastic players.
Right? No, absolutely. But to go off what you're saying here. Now, Gronkowski's only been in the league for so long, and he only played.
And he's been hurt a lot.
And he only played with Randy Moss for so long. The best running back that Tom Brady could have ever had left the New England Patriots before he got there, and that was Curtis Martin.
That's true.
They have not had a running back.
Arguably
they had
Corey Dillon
at the end of his career.
And he was towards the end of his road.
And that's just the way that New England does things. They get these running backs who are at the end of the career. Steven Jackson scored a touchdown in the game
but
last week.
He's not the Steven Jackson Rams.
Right. They seem to just kind of plug guys in there. And wide receivers that stick out to me, obviously Randy Moss, but probably the most, guy when you think of a duo with Tom Brady is Troy Brown. And who's Troy Brown? You know what I mean? Compared to some of the other guys that have played in NFL history, that's what Tom Brady's worked with, and to be able to win the Super Bowls he has is just incredible.
And I think the closest guy you can compare Tom Brady to is Bart Starr, and he's miles ahead of Bart Starr. But because of it's hard for a quarterback to buy into something that Bill Belichick has thrown at you. Because Bill Belichick, he's such an intimidating guy, and he has this game plan, a complex game plan at that, but you have to follow it, and you will win. Not many guys, I don't think, could really follow that game plan, except for a Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Maybe Peyton.
Mm-hmm.
But
here's one of the other things
Rodgers.
that, and we just kind of talked about the players that Tom Brady has played with, and I don't want to say that I hold it against him, but I hold it against him. When you're playing with Jerry Rice, it's hard not to look great.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Joe, but when you when you have
I
arguably
agree.
the best quarterback wide receiver do it, you know what I mean? It's difficult to say.
Yep.
What would Joe Montana have been without Jerry Rice?
And we did see Jerry Rice for a little bit without him. In his Raider days.
Yep.
He did have Rich Gannon.
Yeah.
Rich Gannon was an MVP.
Yeah.
Was that because of Jerry Rice?
Right.
We don't know.
Exactly. And, Tom Brady, if Tom Brady played his whole career with Randy Moss, the Randy Moss that we knew with Minnesota,
he would have gotten 50 touchdowns this season.
Exactly. And I think Tom Brady, maybe next to Brett Favre, in terms of weapons, has done more with less than just about anybody in NFL history.
Yeah. Man, that's tough. So first of all, I want to hear what you say about my list.
Yeah.
Some criticisms, comments, then I'll say about yours.
The thing for me, I I can't say any of these guys don't deserve to be on this list. I think the only disagreement we would have would probably be the order. Obviously, the two that I left off were the back three of yours. Rodgers, I think Rodgers can get there. I don't think he's there quite yet because of the late start that he had. Rodgers has done some marvelous things, don't get me wrong. And he is a very, very fantastic football player. But Rodgers is one of those guys where when he's 35, I could say, yes. If he continues to do it the way that he is doing it, absolutely, I can't see myself not saying Rodgers is one of the 10 greatest quarterbacks of all time. Just right now, I have a hard time saying he is because, granted, yes, he did win the Super Bowl, but it's almost watching Brett Favre all over again with how they lose games. Not saying that it's his fault. Favre has cost Green Bay a number of games, but just, not being able to overcome certain adversities. Was it a couple years ago when the Giants just came in and smashed Green Bay in the mouth? Then the 15-1. I think was that the 15-1 year.
Yeah.
And you're one and done in the playoffs, and then Rodgers has 2 MVPs, but has nothing to show for it from either year. And then this year, they had they won in the first round, and then it just something seems to be missing.
That wasn't Rodgers.
Right. No, and right, but I mean it does. But at the same time, it does come. That's who you're going to look at. I think if Rodgers wins another Super Bowl, he's probably closer to my top 5 than to the back 10. Let me put it that way.
All right.
The other thing, I'm going to throw the honorable mentions that I had were the guys. I mean, I didn't have Rodgers as an honorable mention, but the other two I did. Bart Starr, Otto. I had the hardest time leaving Otto Graham off my list. That was the one guy that I was like. But to the prospect of what Ben Roethlisberger will, I think, accomplish in the coming years is what made me put him at 10. But I had Bart Starr, Otto Graham, Terry Bradshaw, Wyatt Tittle, Dan Fouts, and Drew Brees as my guys that were left off, but did consider for this list.
Okay. I'm trying to find my list. I can't find it, but...
Did you check public speaking notebook? That was the class we were
This is my
doing.
notebook. This is the only notebook I've been
okay.
using this semester.
Okay.
Anyways, so I came up with a list of maybe 21 guys that I thought would be on that that I would consider for top 10.
Mm-hmm.
Roethlisberger, not on that list.
Really?
Warren Moon, not on that list.
Can I ask why?
Tarkenton, I'm pretty sure he was number 21.
Can I? What makes Roethlisberger not a top 20 quarterback of all
time? Okay, first of all, I don't think he's the best Steelers quarterback of all time.
Okay, behind Bradshaw.
I'd go Bradshaw. I mean, and that is tough. I mean, I'm not upset that you put him at number 10 or anything. It's just those 2 Super Bowl victories. First of all, Super Bowl 40. Ben Roethlisberger was not the quarterback that he is today.
Right.
That was his second year.
But the same can be said for Tom Brady in the 3 Super Bowls that they won.
I disagree. I think Tom Brady was a lot better than Roethlisberger was.
I don't. When Tom Brady won that first Super Bowl, was nowhere near what Tom Brady is today.
Oh, no, absolutely.
And
I agree with you.
To me, Roethlisberger...
Brady's only gotten better.
Right, and Tom Brady is better than Roethlisberger, but I think when you compare their younger years, Roethlisberger's numbers were better than what Tom Brady's were. I think Tom Brady was like fine wine and got better with age versus Roethlisberger, who's kind of peaked out. But I think when he was younger, when you look at the numbers head-to-head, Roethlisberger was more advanced.
I didn't say anything when you were ranting about Rodgers.
Gee.
Okay. Another thing, I think Roethlisberger, like Terry Bradshaw, was gifted with a fantastic defense. And the first Super Bowl he had Joey Porter. The game he had who was the big guy?
The D tackle.
The nose tackle, Casey Hampton. Fantastic player, and of course Troy Polamalu in both Super Bowls.
Yep.
And then in the other Super Bowl, you had James Harrison. Some of the best defensive players in the past decade. So See, it's tough. I don't see Roethlisberger as a top 10 quarterback. I don't see him. If I did the top 21 list again, yeah, maybe he'd be in it. Definitely top 25. I'll give you that. Warren Moon, I didn't put him on my list because I just don't see him as a top 10 quarterback. It's just simple as that. You say all those things, won all those Canadian championships. Any of my guys in the top 10 could have won Canadian championships.
And that's where, and I said before we did this that I think where our difference is going to be, and I think we're going to see it when we get to our next position, when we do running backs, is to me, yes, championships are important, but championships don't necessarily define how great a player is, because football is the ultimate team sport. You need all 11 guys at the same time to be able to do what it is that is asked of them. And if one person doesn't do that thing, that entire play is toast. And to me, that's how it's. I used to be that way, where I put so much emphasis on the championships. But now, as you see, as we'll go on, I have two players who are going to be one who is, the greatest at a certain position, and another who is the second greatest at another position, who have never won championships. And that I just feel like their abilities on the football field and what they were able to do just is so much greater than the fact that they haven't won a championship.
I think I know what your running back list is going to look like, but
you can guess my number one, but I guarantee you're not going to get from there down.
Okay. Anyways, my number 11, because my 9, 10, 11 were super close. My number 11 was Roger Staubach.
Okay.
And then my number 12 was Rex Grossman. 13, Tim Tebow. 14, Johnny Manziel.
Anyways, as we wrap up here, we're going to end with that because
15, Jay Cutler.
Wow, I would take.
Really? Okay. Oh, all right.
Yeah, I would definitely take Jay Cutler over Tebow, Manziel, and Rex Grossman.
But I didn't put him over them. Manziel's my 14. Cutler's 15.
That's heartbreaking.
16, Jim Sorgi. 17, Ty Detmer.
Yeah.
I can keep going. I mean,
yeah,
it's a good list. 18, Terry Bradshaw. He made 18. But. Okay, yeah, we had a good show. We had a really good show. Another no commercial show.
Yeah.
There you go. Good stuff. Anyways, we're probably gonna have a lot more to talk about next show.
Yeah, depending upon when that is.
We're gonna try to get one. Obviously, we both have very tight schedules. I have my internship. He has his recruiting.
Yeah.
But anyways, thank you guys so much for listening. Yeah, I mean, if you join the debate on Facebook, we're gonna post something.
If you think that there's somebody that we didn't mention that should be on there, or post your top 10.
Post your top 10. And if you can't make a top 10, if you just want to if you just want to say, hey, I think Brett Favre was the best quarterback of all time.
Right. Yeah.
Share it with us.
Yeah.
We want to know.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll bring it up next episode.
Yeah. I mean, I think the change that we made in the show was to try to get more fan interaction and get more people involved on the Facebook page versus being just a boring news show.
Yep.
What we kind of were.
Yep.
Just to try to create a little bit more excitement.
Absolutely. So that is it. Thank you, Richie, so much.
Yes, thank you, Ben.
And thank you, the fans, and see you next time.